3 years into my marriage with a luxury clothing store, a loud voice echoed just before lunch.
Karen, where are you? Come here right now.
The moment I heard that voice, it felt like my heart was being squeezed. It was my father in law, Bob, and that tone was the one he used when he was angry. "I'll be right there." I thought I had shouted back, but my throat tightened and no sound came out. When I got to the front of the store, there was a male customer with a red face, placing a suit on the table with his arms crossed. In front of him, Bob and my husband, Joe, were bowing repeatedly. Apparently, the suit he ordered looked nothing like what had been delivered. I looked at the suit and felt like I was in a daze. No, this isn't what I prepared. When I turned around, Bob had a defiant smile on his face. While claiming they'd find what the customer wanted right away, my mother-in-law, Judy, brought the complete set of suit I had prepared. The customer left the store with a look of relief. Not again. So that's how it's going to be. I can't live with these people anymore. I've tried for 3 years, but to be treated like this, I'm leaving. I want a divorce. As if he had been waiting for these words, Bob raised his voice.
Oh, finally realized the difference in status between you and us. It's about time you understood that. Yeah, that's right. Leave. Just go.
With the cold laughter of my in-laws behind me, I packed my few belongings in the dim room. However, there was one secret I hadn't told them. I never mentioned this, but as soon as they heard my words, the color drained from everyone's faces. My in-laws would come to regret what they had done. My name is Karen. I lead a busy life working at a major advertising agency. Today, I had a meeting with a client early in the morning. I returned to the office just before noon. I went straight to my boss to report. "I'm back."
Oh, how did that issue go?
I explained the budget situation to both sides and they understood. They also reviewed the designs that were already prepared, and I've informed the designer about the necessary revisions. We can have the final review at the start of the week.
Good. That's a relief. It would have been a disaster if we messed up with such a big client. Thanks for following up so well. I'll make sure the executives know.
Thank you very much. Well then, after finishing my report, I quickly returned to my desk. All right, it's time for the next meeting. Without sitting down, I organized my things on the desk, then headed to the locker room to check my makeup and hair in the mirror. Okay. I nodded to my reflection, grabbed the bag with my materials, and headed to a nearby restaurant where the meeting was scheduled. On the way, I found myself thinking about Joe Brown. We met a year and a half ago. It was a business meeting. As the heir of a luxury clothing store, he wanted to launch an advertisement aimed at young people. The campaign was a success. Normally, that would have been the end of our relationship as client and agency, but Joe kept in touch personally afterward. At first, we hung out as friends, but as I got to know him, I found that we liked the same movies and food. Our relationship quickly deepened, and I began to have feelings for Joe. Suddenly, I stopped and looked back at the office. Joe's words from a week ago echoed in my mind.
I want you to marry me, and I want you to quit your job and help me run my family business. Don't worry about it. My parents handle most of it, so there's nothing you need to do.
I was genuinely happy to be proposed to. My mom passed away a few years ago. Due to his work, my dad and I couldn't live together, so we only kept in touch occasionally. My job was fulfilling, so I didn't feel lonely, but I had resigned myself to spending my life alone, thinking I'd missed my chance at marriage. That's why Joe brought new colors into my life. But can I really quit my jobs? Will I get along with his parents? I was worried and couldn't make up my mind. But today, I decided to give him an answer. I looked ahead and hurried to the restaurant. It was a restaurant on the top floor of a luxury hotel with a stunning view of the starry sky and the dazzling city lights below. Being here felt like being a character in a movie.
Did you see that new movie the other day?
The new movie? Which one? There are so many out this month.
You know, the one with Benjamin Ford as the lead. It's a period drama.
Oh, that one. I've been dying to see it, but I just haven't had the time. Joe's eyes lit up as he shared his thoughts about the movie.
You have to watch it. I don't want to spoil anything, so I won't go into details, but Benjamin is just amazing in it. He's definitely one of American's biggest stars.
You're right. I'll go see it on my next day off. After that, a silence settled between us. The voices of people around us enjoying their meals seemed to grow louder. I knew what we needed to talk about next, but neither of us could take that step forward. If anyone was going to, it had to be me. Steeling myself, I drained the wine left in my glass and looked Joe straight in the eyes. I've thought a lot about marriage since then. Joe stared back at me silently. His hand gripped the tablecloth so tightly that his knuckles turned white. To be honest, I'm scared to quit my job. I'm worried about whether I can manage at the clothing store and if I'll be able to get along with your parents.
Don't worry. No matter what my parents say, I'll protect you. All I want is for you to be with me.
With those words, my wavering heart finally made a decision. I understand. I want to walk through life with you, Joe. I said it and looked at him. The hands clenched on my lap trembled, and the emotions welling up inside spilled from my eyes. After a while, Joe had tears in his eyes. For a moment, we looked at each other, then let out a small laugh. 3 years later, as Karen Brown, I was walking down an old country road under a cloudy sky, dragging my heavy feet. I was on my way back from running an errand. I knew I had to get back as quickly as possible. But the more I thought about the Brown clothing store, the more my legs felt like lead. When I slid open the store's door, an older man in a gray suit turned and glared at me. It was my father-in-law, Bob Brown.
You're late. Where have you been wandering around? When will you understand that you're not in some cushy position here? You're completely useless.
Here we go again. But trying to explain myself wouldn't do any good. He wouldn't listen. There's only one thing I can do. I'm sorry. I said yes and apologized.
That's it? Do you think a few words like that solve everything? You really are an ignorant woman. Can't you come up with a more thoughtful apology? Or have you been living your life aimlessly until now?
I felt the blood drain from my head, and a sharp pain throbbed deep in my brain. Even so, I kept my head bowed and gritted my teeth. I'm deeply sorry for returning late. I'll reflect on this to ensure it doesn't happen again, and I'll make sure you never have to say this to me twice. Bob didn't say a word, just let out a snort and turned his back on me. As I was about to leave, Judy, my mother-in-law, walked in dressed in a floral dress more suited for a younger woman.
Oh, you useless girl. Didn't I tell you to bring the laundry in by 4 o'clock? Can't you manage such a simple task? Because of you, I'm leaving later than I planned. What do you have to say for yourself?
I'm sorry.
That's not it. Didn't I just tell you how to apologize properly? Did you already forget? Or are you just not trying from the start?
I couldn't think anymore. I stood there stunned, while Judy let out a loud sigh.
Again with the silent treatment. Fine. Is this how you troubled your mom too? Quit wasting time and start cleaning or making dinner. Surely even you can manage that much.
Yes. Judy left those words behind and walked briskly out of the store. I did as I was told and began cleaning the living room at the back of the store. The bad weather made the old house even darker. But if I turned on the lights, Bob would complain. A woman of your standing shouldn't be using electricity. So I had to clean in the dark. I had to be careful with my footing, which put a lot of strain on my back and shoulders. To top it off, when my sister-in-law, Samantha's baby, started fussing, I had to stop cleaning to change his diaper. How did things end up like this? I sighed in the dim room. I had thought a happy life was waiting for me, but we didn't even have a wedding ceremony. I didn't want Joe to know about my dad, so I told him that I was raised by a single parent and that my mom and other relatives were all gone. After that, my in-laws' attitude changed completely. They started saying it was a disgrace for someone like me to join a long-established clothing store. I ended up being treated almost like an employee. Worse, Judy seemed to see me as both an employee and a housekeeper, dumping all the household chores on me while she went out and had fun. My sister-in-law, Samantha, who had come back after her divorce, pushed her child's care onto me and went out partying at night. The clothing store business wasn't exactly thriving either. They also ran a general store, and I was told to handle not only the clothing store but also the purchasing, inventory, and accounting for the general store, all by myself. If sales didn't improve, Bob would shout at me. Mistakes were, of course, not tolerated. Yet, I wasn't paid. Early in my marriage, I once consulted Bob about getting a salary, but he just laughed at me through his nose. I talked to Joe about it, but he just brushed me off, saying, "It won't be a problem once you take over the store, so just hang in there." Still, at first, I tried my best to contribute to the clothing store. I've been through some tough situations in my office lady days. I was confident in my customer service skills. Advertising and promotion were my strong suits. I rearranged the merchandise, highlighted best-selling products, and used my spare time to distribute flyers door to door. Sales improved, and the store started to thrive compared to before. This was clearly the result of my efforts. However, Bob was against my methods, saying he didn't like them. He claimed they lowered the store's dignity. If the store went under, there wouldn't be anything left to worry about. But what hurt the most was Joe's attitude. While I was out there desperately serving customers, he was off having business lunches or playing golf. He wouldn't even make eye contact or talk to me. He didn't treat me as his wife. So naturally, we, as a couple, did not have any sexual intercourse at night. Yet Bob and Judy kept pushing for us to have a successor. I wanted to have a child with the man I loved, and I was willing to put in the effort. But this isn't something I can do alone. In our current situation, there's no way I could have a child with Joe. If they want to complain, they should talk to him. But I'm the one who gets blamed. Being criticized for something beyond my control is the worst pain. What kept me from breaking down were the kind words from the people in the neighborhood. Because of them, I felt like I could keep going. One day, as I was washing dishes in the kitchen, Judy threw an envelope at me.
A letter came for you.
The envelope fell into the sink. I quickly grabbed it, but it was too late. It was already soaked with water. I sighed and dried the envelope with a towel. I turned it over to look for a name, but the plain white envelope only had my name and address on it. Who could this be from? I stopped washing, sat down, and tore open the envelope to take out its contents. A letter and a ticket. I gasped when I saw it. It was an invitation to a special movie screening. Not only that, but there was also a stage greeting and a talk event with the actors was scheduled. And the guest star was. I hastily picked up the letter. I carefully read through each page, not missing a single detail. I could feel the corners of my mouth naturally start to lift. When was the last time I felt this way? Thank you. I murmured to the letter, then quickly put it back in the envelope. I went to my room and gently placed it in the deepest part of the shelf, making sure it wouldn't wrinkle. I covered it with some trinkets to keep it hidden and closed the drawer. This should be good. Now the only question is whether I can get the day off. That's the biggest hurdle for me. I returned to the kitchen and stared at the calendar. I've been married into this family and working at this store for about 3 years. I've taken only 3 days off in all that time. Once when I took my nephew to the hospital, once when the family went on a trip and left me to watch the house, and once when I got stranded on my way back from visiting a distant customer due to a hurricane. Of course, the concept of paid leave doesn't exist here. How can I ask for a day off?
Hey, what are you standing there daydreaming for? You're in the way, move.
Oh, I'm sorry. Samantha gave me a suspicious look, her eyes scanning my face.
What's with you? You seem awfully cheerful. I hope you fed my kid breakfast.
Yes, I made sure he ate. Samantha turned her gaze away from me and looked at the calendar. She smirked and looked back at me.
You're hoping for a day off, aren't you? But do you really think someone as useless as you could get permission from Dad?
When I stayed silent, Samantha leaned in close and whispered in my ear.
How about I talk to Dad and get you that day off?
Really?
Of course, there's a condition. I'm a bit short on money. $5,000. If you can lend me that, I'll tell Dad to let you have a day off. Don't worry. Unlike Joe, I'm not heartless.
$5,000. That's a hefty sum, but if I dip into my savings from my office job, I can manage it. If it means I can buy a day off that I desperately need. The problem is whether Samantha will keep her promise. But since listening to her is the only way I can take a day off, I had no choice but to silently pay her the money. All right, I'll get it ready right away, so please wait. I grabbed my wallet and rushed out of the store. I ran as fast as I could to the nearest bank through the hot, humid summer air. The sky, which had been clear just a moment ago, was quickly darkening due to the cumulus clouds, and I could faintly hear thunder. When I reached the bank, I withdrew $5,000. I hurried out of the bank, only to find that large raindrops had already begun to make splotches on the road. I have to hurry. I rushed back to the store, but the rain started pouring heavily. I shoved the envelope with the money into my pocket to keep it dry. However, I tripped on my way back. I scraped my palms and knees, but I stood up and finally made it back to the store. I couldn't go in through the front in this muddy state, or I'd get scolded, so I entered through the back door. I immediately handed the envelope with the $5,000 to Samantha. She smirked and counted the bills one by one.
All right, good.
Well, about my day off.
What? Did I promise you that?
No way. After getting myself all muddy and paying such a large amount, this was too much. I instinctively reached out to grab her arm.
Hey, don't touch me with those dirty hands. I'm just joking. I'll talk to Dad for you, but I can't promise he'll say yes.
After that, I cleaned myself up and stood at the front of the store. I've done all this, so it should be fine. I'm definitely going to get my day off. I was worried about whether Samantha would keep her promise, but surprisingly, it was settled rather easily. Bob didn't seem happy, but he couldn't just dismiss his daughter's request. But I couldn't let my guard down just yet. If I made a mistake, I might lose my day off. So, as I eagerly awaited the day of the screening, I threw myself into my work even more than before. Having something to look forward to really changes your motivation at work. Nothing major happened after that, and soon it was the day before the screening. I couldn't wait for the end of the workday. I kept looking at the clock more than usual, which made time crawl by. My head was already filled with thoughts of the screening. But just before lunch, as I was checking the inventory in the back of the store, a loud voice echoed.
Karen, where are you? Come here right now.
The moment I heard that voice, it felt like my heart was being squeezed. My mind went blank. For my 3 years of experience, I knew all too well. That tone of voice is the one he uses when he's angry. No, I don't want to go. But that's not an option. If I don't go quickly, I'll just get scolded even longer. I'll be right there. I thought I shouted loudly, but my throat tightened and my voice came out like a cicada falling to the ground. When I got to the front of the store, there was a regular customer with a red face, placing a suit on the table with his arms crossed. I was familiar with this man. He had been coming to the store often since I started working. Bob and Joe were repeatedly bowing their heads. However, there was something strange about their apology. The customer couldn't see it, but there was a sly smile on Bob's lips. "I'm sorry, I'm late. What seems to be the problem?"
What is the meaning of this? This is completely different from the suit I ordered. I have an important ceremony tomorrow. What do you intend to do about this?
I looked at the suit the man had brought in, feeling like I was in a daze. I distinctly remembered taking his order the other day and carefully selecting the suit. But the one in his hands now was entirely different. I may be inexperienced, but I'm not so unskilled as to select such a poor suit.
Hey, Karen, don't just stand there. Apologize to him. This is a serious issue.
But I didn't pick this suit.
What are you talking about? You're the one who dealt with this customer. Do you think you can use ignorance as an excuse? Don't you feel sorry for the customer?
I couldn't say a word. This is just wrong. But no matter how much I pleaded in my heart, there was no one to save me. As I stood there, Judy came out from the back of the store.
Sir, I deeply apologize for what happened. We've prepared the suit according to your original order. Could you please take a look?
She respectfully placed a set of suit on the table. I was shocked when I saw it. It was the very suit I had selected for the customer. There was no mistake. I had chosen it with great care to fulfill his wishes. All three of them turned to me with twisted smiles. But the customer didn't notice. He checked the suit eagerly and clapped his hands.
Wonderful. Yes, this is it. This is exactly the suit I ordered. Thank goodness. Now there's no issue for tomorrow's ceremony. I'm sorry for shouting.
No, the fault is mine for entrusting this to an inexperienced person. I'll make sure she's properly trained, so please continue to favor us.
Inexperienced?
The man glanced at the suit and then stared at me. I felt so uncomfortable that all I could do was bow my head silently.
Well, all right then. I'll be going now.
As soon as the man left, the scolding began.
Honestly, anyone can just bow their head. I thought you were a bit smarter than that.
Really, it's such poor upbringing. Living under the same roof with you makes us feel dirty.
I had reached my limit. If I made a mistake, I'd apologize as much as needed. But this is something I can't accept. I don't know. I didn't choose that suit. Another employee delivered it.
Stop making excuses.
But I really didn't.
Well, it's possible. Maybe I intentionally delivered a different suit than the one you picked, Karen. But you have no proof, do you?
What is this man thinking? What does he gain from doing this? I looked at Joe's face, but the man I once loved was no longer there.
Listen, Karen, you're a lowly person. You might think you've contributed a bit to the store's sales, but we are in a different league. It's time you understand that.
Bob said this and laughed loudly. What a repulsive laugh. If I'm at the bottom, what does that make you? I wanted to shout that, but I no longer had the energy. And then Judy delivered the final blow.
Oh, and you. No day off for you tomorrow.
What?
Obviously, someone as useless as you should be working twice as hard as us. Not just tomorrow. No more days off from now on.
The moment the reality of not being able to go to the screening hit me, a dark, inky drop fell into my heart. In no time, it spread and dyed my heart black. Going to the screening was my only source of joy. If that's taken away, what is there left to look forward to? What's going to happen to my life? Will I just be worked like a slave until I'm old, discarded like trash when I'm no longer useful? And when there's nothing left of me, will I be abandoned by society, leaving this world in loneliness? If that's the kind of miserable life ahead of me, I have no choice but to leave this place. There's no reason to endure this any longer. I've tried for 3 years, but that's it. I'm tired. I'm leaving. I want a divorce. The three of them exchanged glances for a moment and then burst into laughter.
Yeah, that's right. Get out.
We took in a woman with no family, and this is what we get. Well, an ungrateful person like you won't be accepted anywhere.
Yeah, you just weren't cut out for this house. I'd like you to leave quickly, but you'll need to do the handover first. You'll work at least until tomorrow.
I stood up without saying a word. I no longer wanted to breathe the same air as these people. As I went into the living room, Samantha was there smirking at me.
What a shame. But I'm not giving back the money. And don't even think about getting alimony from my brother.
Without answering, I went to my room and started packing my things. Sadly, it didn't take long. After living here for 3 years, all I had left were 2 cardboard boxes and a bag. As I stared at them, a dry laugh escaped my lips. I should have left much earlier, but the time I lost won't come back. Even if I can't go to the screening, I still have things to do. The next day, I handed over the documents to the other employees. I also prepared the divorce papers and took care of various administrative tasks until the end of the day. With that, my final jobs was done. But the screening was already over by then. If that's the case, maybe I'll use my remaining savings to treat myself to a nice meal. I was absent-mindedly sweeping outside the store, gazing up at the sky.
Excuse me, Karen.
Startled by the sudden voice, I turned around to see the regular customer who had visited yesterday. Oh, I'm so sorry about yesterday. But he raised his hand to stop me before I could finish.
There's no need to apologize. I know everything. That suit was chosen by you. There must have been some misunderstanding. I'm sorry. You must have been scolded.
No, it's not like that. This unexpected turn of events left me at a loss for words.
From the moment I placed my order, I felt your kindness. You carefully chose the best items to match my preferences for the suit's color and the tie. Inexperienced is far from the truth. Karen, you are top-notch.
Hearing his kind words, his figure suddenly blurred as my eyes filled with tears. With just those words, it felt like the past 3 years had been worth it,
Actually, there's someone I want you to meet.
he said, pulling out his phone to make a call. Moments later, 3 luxury black cars pulled up in front of the store.
What's going on? What's happening?
Did Mr. President come to town?
The unusual sight in the small town caused quite a stir among the neighbors. The man opened the back door of the last car. A distinguished man in a suit stepped out. His commanding presence made everyone gasp. Seeing him, tears welled up in my eyes even more.
It's Benjamin Ford.
One of the neighbors shouted. That triggered an uproar like a beehive being disturbed.
Is that a Hollywood star in a small town like this?
He really does exist.
As I was about to run toward Benjamin Ford, Bob and Joe came running out from the back of the store. They shoved me aside. I stumbled and fell to the ground. Bob didn't even glance at me. Instead, he was wringing his hands and bowing repeatedly.
Welcome, Mr. Ford. Please come inside.
But Benjamin Ford kept his eyes fixed on me.
Oh, don't mind her. She's just an incompetent fool we fired. Please come inside. I'll show you something even better than what you're wearing.
Without saying a word, Benjamin Ford knelt down and extended his hand to me.
Are you okay, Karen? Are you hurt?
I'm okay, thank you. I took his hand and stood up. He brushed the dirt off my knees with his hand. Bob and Joe were staring at us, their mouths wide open.
What is going on?
Well, I didn't mention it before, but this is my dad. The moment they heard that, the blood drained from their faces. Their legs trembled.
But you said you didn't have a dad.
I'm sorry. I kept it a secret because I didn't want everyone to make a big fuss. Suddenly, Bob lunged forward and prostrated himself in front of my dad. Seeing this, Joe hurried to do the same beside him.
I'm terribly sorry. I didn't know. Your precious daughter. From now on, we'll take full responsibility for taking care of her. Please, I beg you to continue your patronage with your friends.
Lift your heads.
My dad spoke quietly. From his expression, even I couldn't tell what he was thinking.
You just said you would offer something better than this suit, didn't you?
Bob lifted his head with his eyes shining.
Yes, of course.
But that's odd. This suit was tailored by your store.
What? That's impossible.
Bob looked at the man standing beside my dad and gasped. He finally realized this was the same customer who had come in yesterday.
How can I introduce my friends to someone who can't even recognize the suit made by their own store? Before you insult someone's daughter as incompetent, You should work on yourself.
That's right. This suit was the one I had chosen for the regular customer. But I never imagined that my dad would be the one wearing it. Bob's face turned a deep red. He gritted his teeth and clenched his hands tightly on the ground. Joe seemed too ashamed even to lift his head, his hunched back trembling.
I knew my daughter had married into this family, so I sent my assistant here to observe how things were going. I investigated various things and concluded that this place is not suitable for my daughter.
Dad, it's okay. It's over now. Our divorce is final and the handover is complete.
All right, then come with me. Let's take our time to talk. It's been a while.
I'll go get my things. As I went to get my belongings, Judy and Samantha came out, looking thrilled.
Benjamin Ford is really here. Amazing.
Hey, you, go get Karen's things, right now.
Startled by the force of his words, Judy quickly brought my things. After loading them into the trunk of the car, I sat next to my dad in the back seat, leaving the store behind.
I'm sorry. I should have helped you sooner. I just assumed you were living happily.
My dad closed his eyes tightly, his face showing pain.
But when you didn't come to the screening and then that incident with the suit yesterday, I knew something was wrong. I couldn't sit still. I'm really sorry.
It's okay. I'm really happy. It's a shame I couldn't go to the screening, but I never expected you to come. Yes, the screening ticket was a gift from my dad. His heartfelt words were written on the letter. That kept me going up until today.
Even so, I won't let them off easily. I'll have a lawyer involved and make sure they pay proper alimony. But Karen, what do you plan to do now?
I don't know.
If you'd like, why not come to New York with me? You can do well anywhere. Seeing the wider world might bring new perspectives.
Yeah, thanks. I'll think about it.
All right, enough of the serious talk. You must be exhausted. Just rest for now.
As the car swayed, I felt the tight string of tension inside me finally start to loosen for the first time in a long while. There were so many things I wanted to talk about, but an overwhelming drowsiness washed over me. I'll just close my eyes for a bit. Once I'm refreshed, I'll have a long talk with Dad. Taking a deep breath, I fell asleep next to him. A few months later, after finishing a meeting outside, I returned to the office and reported to my boss. I'm back.
Oh, how did it go?
They accepted all the proposed design changes. I've already contacted the printer, so we can deliver everything next week.
Well done. Keep it up.
Yes, I will. In the end, I didn't go to New York. My dad's offer was tempting. But it seems that working at my original advertising agency suited me best. Fortunately, thanks to my boss, I was able to return to work quickly. Regarding my savings, the lawyer my dad hired was excellent, and I was able to secure a substantial alimony payment. As I was about to return to my desk, a colleague approached me.
Karen, the reporter from that weekly magazine wants to talk to you.
Again? Oh, well, all right. I went to the reception area where the reporter was waiting.
Thanks for seeing me.
I really don't have anything more to say.
Oh no. I came to thank you. The story about the clothing store that mistreated their daughter-in-law and got taken down by her superstar father. It sold like crazy. I got a lot of praise for it. Really, I'm so grateful.
To be honest, I didn't want to remember those days. But the reporter didn't stop talking.
Since then, the clothing store seems to have gone downhill. Your presence really kept it afloat. And it turns out Samantha had debts with a host club. Her child was taken in by her ex-husband. And let's see.
The reporter pulled out a battered notebook.
Oh, right. The Madam Judy became a recluse. Your ex-husband Joe and his father Bob are apparently working part-time jobs to pay off their debts. What do you think about that?
So, you do want to comment after all. And here I thought you came to thank me.
Just kidding. Well, if anything else comes up, I'll be in touch.
With that, the reporter left the office. At the same time, the chime signaling lunchtime rang out. To me, all of this was just trivial at this point. As I returned to my office, a few colleagues approached me with smiles. I went to a new, popular cafe for lunch with my colleagues and had a great time. I'm really glad I came back to this job. I would have never experienced this if I had stayed at that clothing store. Back then, I thought my life was ruined, but with my dad's help, everything was neatly resolved. Now, I can't help but enjoy every single day.